Coming up on Network Africa, 5 children killed amid heavy rains in Zimbabwe. Tourists, including honeymooning couple, killed in Uganda park attack. Plus, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi rejects any displacement of Palestinians into Sinai. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers. We start off in Zimbabwe, where 5 children, including 4 siblings, have died following heavy rains and floods which have damaged houses and key infrastructure. 4 of the children died when they were struck by lightning while sleeping in bed with their mother in the eastern Manicaland province. The 5th child succumbed to his head injuries while their mother was unhurt. 17 homes were damaged at a village in Gokwe North in the Central Midlands province. The tragedy comes amid widespread heavy rains accompanied by thunderstorms, strong winds and hail for the past 2 days. Over in Uganda, the police are pursuing Allied Defense Force militants suspected of shooting 2 tourists and a guide dead at the Queen Elizabeth National Park. The 3, a British citizen, a South African and a Ugandan guide, were killed in an attack on Tuesday evening while traveling in a tour vehicle. Their safari vehicle was then burned. It's not known or now known that 2 of the tourists were newlyweds on their honeymoon. The ADF is an IS-linked Islamist group which traces its roots to Uganda but operates mainly in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The 2 countries have intensified operations targeting the group in recent months. And turning our attention to the Israel-Hamas war now, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi is warning that Egyptians would reject the forced displacements of millions of Palestinians into Sinai, adding that any such move would turn the peninsula into a base for attacks against Israel. Speaking at a joint news conference in Cairo with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, President Sisi told reporters that the Gaza Strip is effectively under Israeli control and Palestinians could instead be moved to Israel's Negev desert until the militants are dealt with. The border between Egypt's Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip is the site of the only land crossing from the Palestinian territory that is not controlled by Israel. Israel's unprecedented bombardment and siege of Gaza has raised fears that its 2.3 million residents could be forced southwards. President Sisi and other Arab leaders have pulled out of a planned meeting with the U.S. President Joe Biden in protest over the blast and what they see as Washington's pro-Israel bias. Meanwhile, Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera is expressing concern over the security of hundreds of Malawians in Israel amid escalating war between the Israeli forces and Hamas. He declared his support for Israel and condemned the attacks against unarmed civilians and the captivity of civilians by the militant Palestinian group Hamas. The Malawi leader is calling for the cessation of the Gaza violence, which has drawn global attention. More than 300 Malawians are living in Israel. And food supplies are being stockpiled in the Egyptian city of Al Arish and close to the Gaza border to be dispatched as soon as border access is granted. The World Food Programme has mobilized 310 metric tons of food that are either at or on the way to Rafah. The program says it's enough to feed 244,000 people for 1 week. WFP plans to distribute ready-to-eat food and hand out cash to 805,000 affected people in the next 30 days.
WFP has tons of food coming in from planes and trucks around the region, piled up and ready for the green light to enter into Gaza from any possible entry point. We need access into Gaza, and we need to be able to reach the people inside, wherever they are. As people line up to buy what they can with the voucher, the shops are going to run out of basic food items within days. Any existing stock can't reach the shops or the people because of damaged infrastructure and lack of fuel. The number of bakeries we work with is decreasing by the day. They also don't have enough water or electricity to produce bread. We have had to reduce the ration we are giving to people because while the shelters are overcrowding, our ability to reach them is becoming more limited.
The Kenyan government has released names and photographs of 36 terror suspects believed to be behind recent militant attacks in the coastal Lamu County. Among them are Tanzanian, Somalis, a German, a British national, a Bangladeshi citizen, but are majorly Kenyans. The suspects are linked to improvised explosive devices planted on various roads and killing civilians along the Lamu-Witu-Garsen highway. They are also linked to the attack on the American military base at Manda Bay in Lamu in the year 2020. The Ministry of Interior said the armed and dangerous suspects were part of the Al-Shabaab terror network responsible for the planning and orchestrating deadly attacks in Lamu County and the larger Boni enclave. A substantial reward is being offered to anyone with information that will lead to the apprehension of the suspects. With almost all votes counted in Liberia's election, President George Weah and his main rival Joseph Boakai are still running neck and neck and may have to go into runoffs. Mr. Weah currently has 43.8% of the vote, while Mr. Boakai has 43.5%, very close indeed. A candidate needs more than 50% of the votes to be declared winner. The 10th October election was Liberia's closest presidential race since a civil war ended 2 decades ago. Voting is set to be repeated in some parts of Sino, Nimba, and Montserrado counties on Friday after ballots were tampered with by unknown people. Still on the election in Liberia, one of Nigeria's foremost election observer groups, Yaga Africa, is making recommendations for further electoral reforms, such as the need to review the format of ballot papers to include the photographs of candidates. The group asked the National Assembly to review the existing Electoral Act and make electronic transmission of results mandatory, including the uploading of polling unit results. The recommendations are against the backdrop of the recent election observation mission that Yaga Africa made to Liberia for the country's general election.
These are members of the Yaga Africa Election Observer Mission to Liberia, where they monitored the general election that took place recently, and they are holding this news conference in Abuja to brief on their preliminary report. On October 10, 2023, Liberians filed out to vote in the country's presidential election under the watch of several local and international observer missions. Members of the Yaga Africa Election Observer Group who monitored the exercise speak on their observations in this preliminary report.
We did observe a firm commitment on the part of the Electoral Commission to ensure transparency and openness in the management of the results collation or tallying process. The election officials, meticulously enforced the counting and results tallying procedures. And in cases where objections and queries were raised by party agents and observers on matters relating to inconsistencies or computational issues, they were addressed promptly in the full view of everyone.
Also, as part of observation, in addition to everything else that has been said, was also the role that the media played. You could see that they had a commitment to independence and fairness. And in the programs that were broadcast, which we were privileged to listen to on radio, we found out that a number of them, were very committed to peace, to fairness, and to patriotism.
Beyond these observations, the group is calling for some reforms in Nigeria's electoral system.
We're also recommending that INEC should review the format of ballot papers used in Nigeria to include photographs and names of candidates to improve the quality of electoral preferences and reduce, incidence of invalidated votes. But in addition to that, that the National Assembly also reviews the electoral law to address, some ambiguities in the results collation and transmission process.
INEC tries in other parts, but there is room for improvement that INEC can also learn. INEC cannot say it knows everything. Like the issue of the overbloated register, I believe that it is actually overbloated. INEC, like I said earlier, has to find another way whereby it can reduce the number of the people that are already dead that are on that register.
Elections in Nigeria are in a cycle of 4 years, and members of the Yaga Africa Group believe strongly that there is an urgent need to pursue those reforms in Nigeria's electoral system ahead of the next general election in 2027.
An electricity bill has plunged Guinea-Bissau, the capital of Guinea-Bissau, into darkness. The Turkish utility company Co-Power has pulled the plug for a $17 million unpaid bill. The economy minister, Suleiman Saidi, has, however, promised to pay most of the bill within a fortnight. Powership, one of the world's largest floating power plant operators, has a 5-year contract to supply virtually all of Guinea-Bissau's electricity needs. Last month, the Turkish power firm cut Sierra Leone's capital off for a large unpaid debt. Back in Nigeria, the First Lady Oluremi Tinubu has asked women to shape in the future and foster an environment of equal opportunity for all. Mrs. Tinubu, who was speaking at the 23rd National Women Conference, urged participants at the event to collaborate and support one another to ensure that every woman in Nigeria has the tools and opportunities to reach her full potential. It's the National Women Conference organized by the Committee of Wives of Lagos State Officials Council, an event that has been on for over 2 decades. This year, the First Lady of Nigeria, Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu, is in attendance alongside the wife of the Senate President, Ekaiti Akpabio, Chioma Ikeaka Uzodinma of Imo State, Bamidele Abiodun from Ogun State, Tamunomi Mini Makinde from Oyo State, Dr. Olufolake Abdulrazak from Kwara State, among other First Ladies who are here to take part in the ceremony. At the opening of the 23rd edition, a 3-day conference, Chairman of Council, Dr. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu, highlights the focus of the 2023 gathering.
In 2023, our theme is Unleash Your Potential. You will learn a lot during this conference, but I also wish to say to you that unleashing your potentials depends on your decision and courage to go past your limitations. Dear women, we are all at that point right now to make our moves. So I charge you, don't wait for the things to happen. Go and make things happen. Be relevant.
Wife of the Senate President as well as the Oyo State Governor's wife commend Council for sustaining the initiative over the years.
When you empower the women, you have already empowered the nation, because there's no woman that would like her children to go hungry. So, Your Excellency, the Governor, once you are supporting your wife, all these women here, you are all touching their households. Thank you so much.
I want to say, Council, thank you for flagging the flag for Nigerians abroad. What you've done is putting Nigerians abroad in the map. What you've done is making our voice stronger when we go abroad.
The host's governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, urges women to champion the success of Nigeria in their respective spaces.
Nigeria deserves all of your strength right now. Nigeria needs all of you. Nigeria needs all your collaboration and your cooperation, because we can see the work that Mr. President has started doing. And we are giving commitment that we in Lagos will continue to support him in all of the great initiatives that he has brought forward for our country.
Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, a former chairman of Council between 1999 and 2007, is a special guest of honor, as she asks women to continue to break the barriers in all sectors of the economy.
As women, we have the power to shape the future, to be leaders, to be innovators, to be caregivers, and to be agents of positive change. But to unleash our potential fully, we must continue to break down barriers that limit our progress, challenge stereotypes, and foster an environment of equal opportunity for all.
Since its establishment, Council seems to have grown beyond a mere gathering for wives of Lagos State government officials, blossoming into an action group that supports various developmental projects of the Lagos State government and much more. And we're now in South Africa, where the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, has described the country's current fiscal position as difficult. The country's budget deficit widened further in August and September compared to a year ago, as government expenditure continues to grow faster than revenue. However, Mr. Godongwana said this does not mean the country has run out of many revenue-generating ideas. Meanwhile, some economists are warning that the country is running out of money and facing a difficult time for the next 5 years. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Semosa, reports.
The midterm budget statement is approaching, and Treasury officials have already hinted that the country's public finances are in disarray. The country appears to have entered difficult terrain amid numerous challenges. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana emphasized the need of ethical stewardship in the use of taxpayers' monies.
Without swift and fitting consequences, we risk eroding public trust in our capacity to manage public funds effectively.
These developments couldn't have come at a more convenient time for the ruling African National Congress, with national elections looming less than a year away. Furthermore, prominent economist Dawie Rood issued a stark warning that South Africa's financial resources are dwindling.
And if you keep on increasing debt, it's like an individual or like a family. The day is going to come when the bank is going to knock on your door and start taking your stuff back. Now, that is kind of what we are heading for. We are heading for a financial crisis in South Africa if we don't fix this dramatic increase in debt in the country.
Dawie says Eskom's debt burden of 420 billion rands is too much to handle, and it struggles to meet electricity demands.
And I'm afraid if you add the other state-owned enterprises debt, like the NEL, South African Airways, or the Post Office, if we add all of that together, then the debt is even higher. So we are reaching a point where debt has become unsustainable.
Meanwhile, on the streets of Johannesburg, citizens believe the country has money.
It's a lie. The government does have money. They're just hiding it. I know that for a fact. That's why they're always doing all these investments. It's just that the money, it's hidden, but there is money. That's one thing that I know.
There definitely is money in South Africa because, we've seen a lot of investments being done,
Well, economists are predicting that South Africa's fiscal deficit will be larger this year than what Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana initially budgeted for. On the other hand, business community is calling for government departments and the Treasury to prioritize funding to essential spending. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Simos, Channel Television News.
Solar Team Eindhoven, a group of students from the Technical University of Eindhoven, has successfully completed a grueling 1,000-kilometer test drive over Morocco's challenging terrains, driving what they believe to be the world's first off-road solar vehicle called Stellar Terra. The team navigated over different types of terrain.
Driving through arid riverbeds, dense forest, steep mountain trails and loose desert sands, Solar Team Eindhoven highlights the potential of robust, sustainable transport technology. The two-seater road legal Stellatera harnesses solar energy through rooftop panels. These give it energy self-sufficiency with a range of over 630 kilometers on a sunny day, with an off-road range of approximately 550 kilometers contingent on terrain.
Stellatera is the world's first off-road car powered on the energy of the sun, which makes it independent of charging stations, achieving completely freedom in a sustainable manner all around the world. Stellatera is robust enough to navigate not only on paved roads, but also on rough terrains like this. On a sunny day, Stellatera can drive 630 kilometers, is road legal, and has a top speed of 135 kilometers per hour, and only weighs 1,200 kilograms. What have we been doing in Morocco? We tested Stellatera extensively. We started in the north of Morocco and we drove over 1,000 kilometers through various landscapes to finish our journey in the Sahara, all powered by the sun. Some parts needed some adjustments, but overall Stellatera performed above expectations on and off the road.
The team completed their solar-powered journey with Stellatera, performing above expectations with just a few minor adjustments en route, such as replacing the broken steering rod. When members of the team embarked on the journey, they weren't sure if they would make it on solar power alone. But during the ride, Stellatera turned out to use 30% less energy than expected, meaning the team was able to drive the entire trip on the sun's energy and did not depend on charging stations. They found their custom-made converter for the solar panels was more efficient at turning sunlight observed by the solar cells into electrical charge than expected.
That's Network Africa. Thank you for watching. I'm Jacka Rogers.